We have with us the panelists Arpit Gupta, Sneha Jain, Malvika Ranjit, and Akansha Takyar. So speaking about all of these people, Arpit is an IIM Lucknow graduate from 2013 with 12 plus years of professional experience and 3 plus years of experience in teaching young kids about financial literacy and other real world concepts. His core belief is that to make India progress, we need to give kids real world education instead of theoretical education, which neither helps in professional nor in personal life. Then we have with us Sneha Jain. She's an MBA graduate from IIM Lucknow, batch of 2020. She has a professional experience of over 3 years in industries like media and entertainment, financial services, and data analytics. She's truly passionate about empowering the young generation with the skills and mindset necessary to build a great future, and is always seeking opportunities to contribute in this area. She's always looking forward to hear your views as well as on the subject tonight. Then we have with us Malvika, who is an MBA graduate from SDA Bocconi. Currently, she's working as a business consultant at the Digital Fifth, a fintech consulting firm based in Mumbai. Apart from this, she has also worked with companies like Haxton Agro Products in Barry, Calibot, India. And last but not the least, we have with us Akansha Takyar. She has completed her post-graduation from IMT Ghaziabad. She's a senior researcher with Gartner, where she creates progressive income for HR leaders across the globe. She is also an author and a certified DDI facilitator on Interaction. She has over 8 years of talent management experience in manufacturing, retail, and private equity, spanning Indian and international markets. She was honored by AIMA as India's best young manager for 2018 for her research on reimagining India to make it innovative, inclusive, and invincible. Now let's to talk a bit about Cerebro Kids. So speaking about Cerebro Kids, Cerebro Kids is an IIT IIM alumni-led EdTech initiative that focuses on delivering future readiness programs in different streams, including technology, finance, advertising, and others, to students of class 5 and above. With their well-established teaching procedures and renowned group of mentors from esteemed institutions, they help the students to develop the right skills that are required to shape their careers and to realize their full potential to achieve success. With that, now let us begin with this discussion. And I truly hope that by the end of this discussion, we will have clarified some queries that you must have about the NEP. If at the end of this, we have some time left, maybe we'll open this to a few questions from you. Now, before we move on to actually asking the questions to the panelists, let me shed some light on a brief history of the NEP. So there have been 3 such policies drafted before NEP 2020. The first was in 1968 by Indira Gandhi. The second was in 1986 by Rajiv Gandhi, and the third was in 1992 by P.V. Narasimha Rao. About the basic structure of NEP 2020, it is the first education policy of the 21st century, which aims to address certain developmental imperatives, and it is aligned to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. NEP 2020 is built on the foundational pillars of access, equity, quality, affordability, and accountability. It basically recommends many transformational ideas for school education, and it emphasizes universal education to high quality early childhood care and education across the country in a phased manner, with special attention and priority to districts and socio-economically disadvantaged areas. So it has a 5+3+3+4 curricular and pedagogical structure based on cognitive and socio-economical developmental stages. So they are as follows. The first is foundational stage, which is aged 3 to 8 years, which is 3 years of pre-primary plus grades 1 to 2. The second is preparatory stage, which is 8 to 11 years for grades 3 to 5. The third is middle stage, which is 11 to 14 years for grades 6 to 8. And the fourth is secondary stage, which is 14 to 18 years for grades 9 to 12. Now, basically, the NEP seeks to ensure foundational literacy and a reduced content load in school education curriculum and assessment reform so as to facilitate the holistic development of students. There will be no hard separations between arts and sciences, between curricular and extracurricular activities, between vocational and academic streams with the implementation of NEP. Now, NEP also puts focus on the empowerment of teachers and their recruitment, service conditions, transfer policy, and career progression opportunities at all levels. The policy also lays greater emphasis on technology to improve multiple aspects of education, including learning, assessment, planning, and administration. Now, with that, let us start with our questions for today. So the first question goes out to Malvika. Yeah. So firstly, let's go on to what makes NEP important enough that we're discussing it today. So what can you tell us about this policy, Malvika?
Sorry. So as you were saying, NEP is actually the first education policy that has come out in 34 years. And over the last 34 years, we've seen so much development in terms of technology, in terms of education, in terms of overall development. So now it's no longer a world that is separated by uh, oceans or anything. So it's come to a small village, right? So there's development in terms of communication, there's development in terms of technology. We have self-driving cars. We have machines that can calculate complex algorithms in a matter of seconds. And none of these are actually reflected in our current education system. We need changes where instead of kids going about learning what is happening day by day, the only thing they are focusing on currently is completing their assignments. Only thing a child that is currently in 11th and 12th wants to know is how to pass their board exams. So everything is currently revolving around marks. So I think it was high time that the government actually came up with something that will encourage an overall development, give them a real understanding of what is happening in the world. Move away, let's move away from by heart, the culture of by hearting things, right? You have to have overall cognitive development so that you can become citizens who are actually contributing to the development of the economy. So I think NEP is going to be a big step in the right direction here.
Right, that is absolutely true. And so moving on to that, let's make out our next question to Akanksha. So our topic today is NEP and its shortcomings. And based on the points discussed by Malvika, we've of course come across its importance. But let's also discuss a few more positives about this. So what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So while I agree with Malvika that it was a big change, it was much needed, I just want to break it down in terms of positives as to what benefit it is for the country, and then sort of move on to another level, which is as students, how does it benefit them? So let me cover the nationwide approach. How does it benefit India? I think the multidisciplinary approach that we have, especially higher education, that this policy is going to get. Earlier, we were only having, if you want to do medicine, you go to AIMS. If you want to do, if you want to be an engineer, you go to IIT. If you want to do management, you go to IIMs. How do you sort of really bring these multiple disciplines together when there is a problem such as COVID? It's a nationwide pandemic. You may be able to solve the scientific aspect of it. Who's going to solve the management aspect of it? So I think as a country, we needed some sort of institution where all these disciplines come together and really solve for research. So that flexibility that the system is going to get is really going to build something that this country requires in terms of problem solving. I think that's beautiful. The other aspect of this is also that as a student, I have multiple options. There's a stigma, of course, whether even in school, if you're going for commerce or science or arts, or, you know, in my family, we had this problem. My sister wanted psychology. She also loved some aspects of commerce, but she did not want to take up maths, but she didn't really have many options. So she had to take up humanities. So those kind of options did not exist. And I think right now you can just mix and match at your level, you're comfortable. And then for the country also at a higher level, if somebody wants to do after 3 years, if I want to continue and I want to get into hardcore research, I can do an additional 4th year and then get into research. If I don't feel like doing that, very well, I can drop out after 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, still get a certificate or a diploma or a bachelor's degree, not be labeled as a dropout, and decide when I want to pursue a career or go for a job. So I think that's fantastic. The other two elements that I think are super helpful is that, again, from a student perspective, is how you're teaching them. Now in corporate, we have this whole 70-20-10 principle where you say 70% of your learning happens on the job. Your 20% is your exposure, you know, when you attend conferences and webinars and panel discussions like this. And 10% is what you read, that classroom training. So right now, our education system was completely focused on the 10%. Now with vocational training coming in from 6 standards, with an opportunity for our children to have sort of internships, really apply what they're learning. This is more or less shifting that entire focus from that 10% to that 70%. And you actually learn how to apply those skills in real life, which I think is fantastic. Prepares them for their career as well when they ultimately take up jobs. There has always been a mismatch in terms of, I'm in HR, in terms of, you know, what we're looking for and what sort of talent we're getting. So this will bridge that gap. And also basis, I think the students will be evaluated. It is a competency based approach. It is not rote learning. And for those of you who probably don't are not familiar with the term competency, let me just break it down. Competency is just knowledge, skill, and attitude. So it's not just knowledge you're focusing on. You're focusing on skills, and you'll be evaluated basis that, which means in the end, it's not going. You're gonna have change conversations in your dining room with your parents. It's not gonna be like, have you completed your homework or have you completed that project. It's more about what have you learned, where can you apply it. So students will not be under pressure to really get themselves assessed on academic scores. And I see this classic example even at home when I sort of talk to my husband, because I have been somebody who's always been in academics throughout, and my husband has always been on the practical side saying, it's okay, I just understand the concept. And I've been a high achiever all my life. Ultimately, when it comes to job, when it comes to work, I always felt that he gets things done faster, and how it's just because of that small difference that he has that ability to work on practical problem solving. And now, even in corporates, we're assessing people basis competencies, not basis performance. I mean, performance is an important aspect, but I'm just telling you what's the latest in corporates. You're assessing people in basis competencies. So, if in school you start training children to start developing their competencies, life will be so much easier for them in corporates.
Right. No, I fully agree with that point, wherein the discussion would be more practice oriented than just entirely theoretical. So moving on, so now let's discuss what our topic essentially is about. So this next question goes out to Arpit. So while this policy has grown in popularity because of the positives, as just discussed, what do you think are the shortcomings that are easily overlooked?
Talking about the shortcomings or things which can be easily overlooked, I would say first of all, this is just a policy. There is no foundation on the government, or there's no. It's not a law or a notified something that it has to be implemented. Government can easily keep on sitting on it for next 10 years. So first thing is we would like to see how soon this policy becomes a law, so that uh, the good points that have come out, they actually are implemented. That is one. Second is, as Akansha said, there is a lot of focus on vocational studies, or a lot of focus on studies related internships for students. That is very good. But again, the policy has clearly missed to highlight what kind of vocational studies. Coding, yes, they have highlighted that coding has to be taught, should be taught in coding has to be taught, should be taught from class 6 onward. But what about other vocational skills? What about other real life skills that should be taught? Government should be talking, giving out ideas to schools that what are the things that should be taught. Financial literacy, for example, that is one such topic which is critical, which is so important. It should be taught to everybody. Entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial skills should be taught right from the early age of a child. Talking about designing is such a concept or such a beautiful domain which kids are never exposed to. Everybody is just talking about go to engineering, go to IITs. What about top colleges like NID, law, uh, National Law University? These are some of the top colleges of India, but we are not developing talent to go to these colleges. That is again one of the problems that we identified uh, in this. That can easily be, and what government or uh, what government needs to come up is with the ideas that how we can make this. How can this problem of what is to be taught, what kids should learn, that can be solved. What kids should learn to make life more easy for them, what kids should learn to make it more that can help them in their professional lives. So I learned, let's say, mathematics. I was a maths genius. I always scored 100. How is that helping me? Nothing. I was an integration champion. What is that helping me in? Nothing. Or had I been a top finance guy, or had I been top marketeer when I cleared class 12, I could have become much better professional in my life. So that is one area where the NEP is clearly missing. Another point, the NEP still has not talked too much about the marginal sections of the society or the poor people. How can education be taken to these people? How can education be more? Uh, how can we lead to democratization of education more? And again, education which is relevant to the kids, not just that kids are just going to school and for midday meal schemes or breakfast, but kids should actually love to go to school. They should have fun going to school. That this education
Right.
policy is still missing that point, that kids hate studies. How can we make studies fun for kids? That is one point that this education policy should be focusing more on. Another big point, that education itself is missing, or education in India is missing. We treat education as a not for profit kind of a concept. Every school or college has to declare itself as a not for profit organization. Why do you want to make it as a not for profit organization? Let these guys earn money, let people put in money in education. If you have money in education, top talent would want to come into education and start teaching. Start People from top colleges of Harvards or Harvards of the world, or India IIMs or IITs will come into education if there is money in education. Why do you want to stop top talent from coming into education sector? They should come into education. So that is one point which this education policy is again missing. It is still treating education as a not for profit kind of a concept. So I think these are some of the points which this education policy is missing. There are multiple other points, but I guess as far as students are concerned, these points are really critical. These other points can be more about how uh, education policy has talked about this 4-year undergraduate program, which is FIUP, which was launched in 2013, but not in detail. That is very important. That program is very important for PhD students, but that is still there is no proper guideline for that. So there are some things which are missing, some things which could have been done better. I think if the government can come up with some amendments to this policy, they should focus more on real skill development in kids, the skills which can help them in their day-to-day lives, in their professional lives, which can help them in making education fun for kids. I think as a
Right.
these are some of the points, key points which are missing in this policy.
Right. 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 Moving on to the next question. So, Sneha, in a statement on this topic, it has been stated that the reason that this policy is truly revolutionary stems from its ability to add to the overall development of our students. So, what would you say qualifies as overall development, and how do you think that this policy is addressing that issue?
Okay, good question, Sneha. Thank you. I personally feel that the notion of this overall development is something that varies across people. So go and ask parents and ask them, what do you mean by overall development for your kid? They would say that my kid is doing some academics and doing some extracurricular activities also, and side by side as a part of certain societies or clubs within the school, and doing some kind of co-curricular activities as well. And according to them, if a kid is participating in all these activities, he is actually focusing a lot on personality development and growing overall. So for them, the notion of overall development is this. Coming to the students in our society, they have a very minimal idea around this overall development. As pointed out by Malvika and Akansha as well, for them, scoring marks in an exam or just passing a grade is something that they just look forward to. And till the point that they are able to achieve this, they feel that it's okay, we are developing. They do not understand the professional industry. They do not know what is needed there. So, because they do not have a goal in mind, they do not understand the intricacies of the professional world. They are themselves not aware what they want to learn and why they are learning something. So, if they are learning history in school or a college, they mostly do not know the reason behind that. So this notion of overall development, I think,
it first needs to be clarified across all these people in the society, so that they are at least they're sure within themselves, okay, what we want to learn and why we want to learn. According to me, I would say that overall development can be, classified into three broad categories. One is concept centric, two is skill centric, and third is experience or practice centric. So the concept centric part of this is the theoretical knowledge that we learn in the school. What's missing over there is, number one, we do not know why we are learning that, and number two, as Akanksha also said, the focus of the school and colleges is completely on this concept centric learning. Instead of devoting a good proportion to that, they are allocating the entire focus on this particular pillar, and that's why the remaining two pillars completely gets neglected. The second most important pillar for this overall development is the skill centricity, where you are learning those skills which are needed in the world out there. I would say the skills are both hard skills and soft skills are important for anybody, like vocational courses, like coding, like financial literacy. These are some areas that teaches you hard skills that are obviously necessary, out there in the professional world. But what about the soft skills? Nobody today in schools is focusing on building those soft skills, and many employees, when they actually start working in the organization, lack these skills, because we have projects in schools. But are these projects team based? Are these projects focusing on qualities like leadership for students? No, they are not. They are completely individual projects. People do not understand the need of, actually learning these skills throughout their life, so that by the time they join the workforce, they are actually professional in this stream also. They master the art of these skills and are able to implement them actually. So this is a big gap over there. The third part is practice centric or experience centric. So, okay, I know the concept. I know, addition and subtraction. I have practiced certain skills also, but do I know how to implement them? Let's look at it from an engineering perspective, like coding. It is very popular these days. We learn it in college. We know how to code. We start with C and C++, which are not even used these days. We start learning them. We know the syntax, we know the code. But does it make you, enough qualified for a job? No. But when you join there, you're working on completely different tools, like business intelligence, like data analytics, data lake, warehousing, big concepts that you actually do not practice even in your engineering careers. So is it helping you? No. Till the time you do not practice it, it's not building your personality. So according to me, the overall personality development, the overall theory behind this development needs to be clarified, and everybody in the system should have this belief, be it teachers, be it parents, be it students, that this development is something that's going to come from a lot of initiatives, and it is not limited to a skill or a theory. It is limited to a much wider aspect that involves the emotional, the social, the psychological, the physical, all these parameters of your personality, so that you evolve as a good professional, a good human, and that's how you integrate better into the professional world out there. Now, coming to NEP, how does this solve the problem? The current policy of NEP that has, been proposed, according to me, it's a very small step in this direction. Why I say small? Because it talks about certain things. It talks about vocational training. It talks about breaking the silos, the lines between these different career streams. It talks about how a student can actually choose, mix and match the subjects that are available in the later parts of their career, and can make better decisions. But nowhere does it talk about how they'll be able to do that. We say, okay, you can mix and match the subjects. You can take 2 subjects of commerce and 1 subject of art, and probably some of the students in schools would do enough to make their students equipped with all those skills that they can make a right decision. But currently the system is not at all focusing on that, and even in the new policy we are not talking about it. We talk about analytical intelligence, we talk about decision making and critical thinking, but it nowhere talks about how we are going to build it. And I completely understand it is something that needs time to build upon, and it's not going to happen in a matter of an year or two. But talking about the implementation, talking about the nuances is very important. Even if you're able to make just one correct decision in this step, but you're sure of making it, you're sure of how you're going to implement it, that impact is going to be big impact when compared to multiple steps taken together, but everyone in such a small proportion that even in a combination, they're not going to make that big impact on your personality as a student, and change your mindset in a way that actually helps you in future. That's what I feel. That where this NEP policy lacks in terms of this overall development concept. So it touches upon that, but it does not define it to the specific detail level which is necessary so that we can progress even a bit in that direction. And obviously, this is something really long term. So the more we move forward, the more we enhance our thinking, and the more we discuss, we'll be able to probably come up with something really big and better.
Right. So based on what you said, from what I could gather, is that I think at the base of it lies the fact that development has become a very subjective term. But somewhere a standardization comes into play where we base an entire policy on that, one on which the entire fate of the students rests. Right. So moving on to the next question. So this is for Malvika. And Malvika, I think this is one of those questions that everybody wants to know the answer to. Everybody who's present in this discussion. What kind of a future can these three groups look forward to with respect to the implementation of NEP? And these three groups that I'm talking about are students, parents, and teachers.
Right. So I think as Neha mentioned, it's not like it's not a complete shift, right? It's an iterative process. Everything has to come one by one. I think since we are taking a step in the right direction, let's start from the basics. The first thing that NEP is doing is removing the overall stress, concentration on exams. So right now, what's happening? So we have students who come in at maybe the age of 3 or 4. They pass through 10 standards, 10 to maybe they do pre-KGs. They then do the entire schooling system, and then they go to the 11th and 12th, where the entire concentration is on passing the board exams. Post which they go into either, majority of them go into either of two streams. They go into either medicine or they go into engineering. So it's a very set process. I think NEP is sort of widening their horizons. So here NEP is planning to have an art integrated course, a sports. So I think it's widening the horizons for the entire student community. Yes, it will be a slow process. Yes, it will take a lot of time for, I think more than anything, I think the mindset is what has to change everywhere. And all this is resting on the shoulders of teachers right now. It's up to them to make sure that the students, instead of following the same old curriculum, that they go through an entire mindset change. So it has to go towards a real understanding and away from all the culture of road-based learning. So currently, I think the government is also trying the same thing. For this giving out special trainings for all the teachers, including people who are currently teaching in play schools and Anganawadis. They're going to be trained. So what they've said is there'll be a 6 months training program or a 1-year training program based on the requirement. So at every stage, they're making sure that the teachers who will be carrying this entire system forward is getting ready for this. But teachers who've been currently teaching for maybe 30 years, 35 years, it's going to be a big process to change their entire mindset, change their entire way of thinking. To do this, it'll be difficult. And also, I think parents will have a huge role because they want what is best for their children. And currently, what is best for their children is to get out of school, maybe go to a college, then get a good job. So that is where it is. You have to be independent. And right now, good job equals going to a medicine degree or an engineering degree. I'm not saying that is true. I'm saying that is the current mindset. So I think the first thing that has to change here is the mindset. As soon as mindset changes, maybe like in 5 years, maybe in 10 years, when the new generation of students get into schools, I think slowly we'll be able to bring them progressively towards a much better system. I think a much wider system. I think with the support of parents at home, where they encourage students to talk about what they've studied, talk about maybe apply them somewhere, maybe do a few school projects. If the parents are also completely invested in the system, and if the teachers are like completely involved in making sure that the child is learning through the system, I think we'll have a much better India, a much more educated India, with a bigger horizon. I think we'll have an India which is much stronger in the future. Our economy will develop a lot based on this one system, is what I think.
Right. Okay. Moving on to the next question. So this question goes out to Arpit. What extra measures would you suggest be taken to improve the overall effectiveness of the policy's agenda of student development? So how would you, given your experience as a mentor, like to partake in it?
Okay, so the basic, as I said in my previous answer, the basic problem lies with making education fun for kids. how can we make it fun for kids, and how can we change that attitude, or change that attitude of exam culture? Right now everything is like you study for the whole year for an exam at the end of the year, and that is like the only education pattern that we know. In school, in colleges, even in MBAs, we had in IIM there was a subject, advanced communication skills. We had a written exam for advanced communication skills. So written exam is the only way of measuring a student's capabilities, is what we know, and that should go, because one day cannot define a student's capabilities or his learnings. So we as mentors, as trainers, as teachers, schools, we have to find ways uh, to assess students learning capabilities in a different way. That has to be done. Second is, marks marks should not be the criteria to judge a student's learning, or to know their skills. So maybe I could have been a topper in marks, but I don't know nothing. I know nothing about how things work in the real world. So that is where things have to change. As a mentor, I would always prefer to see holistic development in a child as compared to marks that the child is scoring. Second, rote based learning methodology has to go away. That is not helping our students in any way, that has not helped us. And if not changed, that will not help any of the coming generations also. We mugged everything in schools, in colleges, in engineering, MBAs, any kind of education stream you go into, you have to mug up things. That has to go away. Education should be not based on mugging, but based on your personality or skill development, so that whatever you learn help when you go out into the real world after college. It helps you tackle the problems that you will face there. And I guess Neha came up with a very good point that even in our engineering we learn basics of C++, or maybe Linux. But are these the technologies that we should be learning? As a mentor or as an academician, we should be pushing towards modernization of education, uh, towards the direction in which real world is moving. We should be teaching kids data analytics, financial analytics, or big data. We should be teaching them artificial intelligence. We should be teaching them how probably frauds that happen in the real world, how can uh, we as individuals save ourselves from those frauds. So things which are of relevance in our day-to-day lives, that should be taught to kids. As a mentor, I would always, and the second point, and the third point is, kids should love what we are teaching. So the methodology of education should be not just that I am teaching and I don't care if the kids understand it or not. The methodology should be, if I am teaching, kids should find it engrossing and interesting enough that they come up with they want to attend the class. So as a mentor, I would say the what we teach, how we teach, that is very important. And how what kids are learning should be should have an impact on their lives, not just to pass the exams. NEP, and the coming policies and all, I think to make it more effective, they should focus a bit on these lines.
I just have one more point to add here. Like, I completely agree with that, what Arpit said, but I just feel that there is a very important point that we are missing in each and every answer that we are discussing right now. We are focusing on what should be taught, we are focusing on how it should be taught, and how it should make an impact on the life of a child. But we are not talking about what the kid understand out of it. Till the point the kid is not understanding the importance of learning that particular subject or a concept, or be it a skill, or even in an internship, like we all must have done it. Like I have done my internship when I was in BTech. And it was just go there, put the attendance, and be back. The learning was not associated with it. Why? Because I was not understanding how it's going to help me. There's a kid, my niece. She asked me a few days back. I don't know why I am learning this history. Didi, do you have any idea why should I even do that? And I was like, I was able to answer it to some extent. And then she was a little bit convinced, okay, it might help me, it might not help me. Still, it's difficult for them to learn, so not very much convinced. But the moment they understand that why learning a particular subject is going to help them in future, they'll be really interested to learn that. So thermodynamics, we feel that it's not important for the kids, but for someone who wants to go into research, for someone who wants to pursue a career like that, or maybe just study for the fun of learning it, he should at least understand that this concept is not important for everyone, but it can be important for me because I want to do something like this in future. For example, I want to just go to the moon in future, and to go to the moon in future, I need to understand a lot of physics. I need to practice a lot of integration and differentiation, which my best friend would not like to study because she probably wanted to designing, become a fashion designer. But for me, it's important. So till the time the kids do not see the impact of what they are learning on their lives, and be it their parents, they are not going to understand its importance, and they are never going to learn it completely. So that's one. And secondly, I had a point from the Malvika's answer also when she was talking about how teachers who are teaching from 30, 35 years of experience, they have a specific mindset which needs to be changed, obviously, because if we want to bring about a change of this magnitude, it becomes important that all the people who are in the ecosystem and are related to this concept actually have their views updated on that. There I feel the strategy part, the implementation details comes into the picture. Are we willing to hire new people who are with a mindset like me and Malvika, who have recently passed out of colleges, who are willing to make a difference into the system? If yes, how we are actually going to bring them? How we are going to integrate parents, their relatives, the friends of students into this entire system to make it an overall success? So that's where the ski of implementation comes into the picture. And the moment we start thinking about it, probably we'll all come with really good and fresh ideas to implement that.
And one more point, I think what Sneha raised this point about understanding the importance of what we are learning. I think when I was in class 7, that was the first time when I realized that whatever I learned in class 6 was of, I mean, whatever I learned in 7th was completely different from what I learned in class 6. And then it goes on. Every year I learned something which was completely different, and the previous year education was a complete waste. So I forgot all of that, and I was like, what was the use of that? So whatever we are studying, we should realize the use of that in our lives. Maybe uh, an important thing can be whatever we are studying. Like in engineering, we used to have this practical and theory classes. This can be done in schools also, and not just for science, but also for every other subject. And the practicals should not be just about uh, what you're studying, but practical should be about how you will implement that learning in your daily life. How will that impact your life? So if kids start understanding about how a specific thing impacts their daily life, then they will still want to learn it more, and they would want to uh, maybe read more about it, discuss more about it, and they would find it interesting.
Right. I fully agree with what both of you just said. And to add to what Arpit just said, so I remember that in school, our teachers used to tell us that, remember this concept because this will be continued next year. Which, in a way, if you think about it, it just goes on to show how little of what is taught is carried on to next year. So the fact that you have to ask your students to remember something, that itself means that, so little of that is actually carried forward. And the fact that you have to mention it, I mean, that just doesn't make sense at all. Okay. Moving on to the next question. So this is for Akanksha. So Akanksha, do you think that this policy will affect the impressions of our education sector as perceived by others, and in what way?
It's interesting you asked me this question at this time because I see how this is anyway being perceived by us as panelists in the group in different ways. So let me first begin with how it's going to be perceived internationally. Let's go at that level. The changes that we've made, 5+, 3+, 3+, for that is actually aligned to international standards. That's something that even Cambridge follows. So that's an upgrade. And in that context, I think it's definitely going to be perceived positively. The fact that we're going to try and invite 100 plus top institutions, educational institutions and universities to India is again something which will be perceived positively. I mean, I don't have to, whether it's about me wanting to pursue higher education or whether it's in India or whether I want to go abroad. The CBSE curriculum earlier did not really have much opportunities for children to work and build on those skills basis which they could go abroad. If you just see the stats, people who studied abroad have a higher chance of pursuing higher education in that concept. But CBSE curriculum, there are so many gaps that you don't feel that you're up for going to Cambridge or something like of that sort. Now with this change, those gaps will be bridged. So I think in the international environment, it's going to make sense. Within India, it's already being perceived so differently in so many ways. I can tell you how it should not be perceived. There is a certain section that thinks vocational training is child labor. So maybe the government needs to do something to ensure that this is not what they're talking about. The idea is that every time somebody comes out of school, they pass out with at least one vocational skill that they have, which will be useful for their life. So the concepts of finding an internship while you're working, or maybe when you're in your post-graduation, is not the same as doing an internship when you're in 6th grade. That's very different. So that is something that the government should clarify. I think in terms of strategy, people who get it, I mean, even right now, just some reactions to what Arpit and Sneha were discussing, even all the points that Arpit as an academician says, I think this policy hits them bang on. But the fact that he's questioning that, how will we should be covering these things means that there is a certain gap in messaging that the government needs to address. And naturally, there are questions on how, and I will probably cut government some slack here because it's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's an evolution. It's not a revolution. I mean, you need to take baby steps at a time. But yes, I think some work is being done there. What really matters is that we, the people who have joined this discussion, interpret it right. So yes, it is something which is going to change the way people have conversations. It is something that should be exciting for children because you no more have to tell them or force them to, select subjects. They will naturally select subjects which they like. So there shouldn't be a question of telling them that this is something that you should be pursuing. But yes, nobody knows what that combination will lead to. So I really don't know what a physics and a psychology combination would get me. Like, will I have jobs that match that profile? So in terms of culture, again, something that Sneha was discussing, we need to institutionalize it. And there are multiple aspects of it. Even if you're not ready, we should be ready for it. Most people are probably perceiving it as positively. The rest just probably have questions. What to do, how to address, what changes. I think teachers are also very concerned in one aspect that, A, of course, it's a change. B, when you talk about talking in mother tongue, and the intent for the government, I think, was that some small concepts, at least till 5th grade, are best understood when you teach them in your mother language. The teaching should not get lost in translating it. However, what happens is that in case you need to teach in your mother language, you'll also need to ensure that you have collateral material for that. You need to publish things. And then again, there is this whole concept of trying to make schools non-profit. So how does that all tie together? Everything just leads back to implementation. So people who are thinking this through a little more are probably thinking about implementation actions. And that's what the government needs to do to address these areas. And also, I think one more thing that I want to clarify is that we were talking about marginalized societies as well. There are also some sections who feel that if they're not taught English from the very moment that they join school until 5th, they're learning in their mother tongue, then there's also this risk that the gap between people who've been speaking English since 1st grade versus people who have been, learning in their mother tongue, that increases. And it's a little harder for me to then grasp language at a later stage. So how are you going to address those questions? So maybe just trying to find out what are those pressing concerns for important stakeholders and just positioning the message to ensure that they are answered. That's when you get their buy-in, and that's when as a society we will be able to really institutionalize it, because at a conceptual level I think all of us agree. There is nothing that we really disagree on in terms of what is the intent of this policy.
Right. Yes, absolutely. So we have a question from the registered attendees, and this will be the last question that we'll be taking today. So I want to ask this question to Sneha. So will the decision of taking out the degree MPhil bring any fruition?
Okay, this is a very specific question, but okay, I'd like to take it up a little bit in detail. And I think that, this question, I feel that people who are really engaged in this kind of a course or are pursuing it or are teaching this will be the best stakeholders to answer this. But from what I have analyzed and I have read, I feel the decision in very short run, if you look at it, it looks a little bit of hurried decision. People are questioning what will happen to people who are already pursuing this degree. Will it be helpful? Will it not be helpful? People who have invested their, time already into this, have they taken the right decision or not? And, there are students who are seeking admission this year also. So the doubts for them have even increased. And, I don't know how this is going to chart out for these people. But if you look at the long-term perspective, it has both pros and cons, and again, everything boils down to implementation. There are people who feel that, this kind of a
Sorry, I think Sneha is facing some net trouble.
Yeah, her screen froze, I think.
I guess some network problem with next.
MPhil degree is not required because it's ultimately burning. Hello, can you hear me, guys?
Yeah, your screen actually froze for a few seconds.
Yeah, I noticed that my network was a problem. Okay, I was just saying that, in the short term, we actually feel that it's a little aggressive step to take, and people are having a lot of apprehensions around it. But if you look at a longer term perspective, a decision like this could save a lot of time for the people who want to pursue PhD in long run, but then it has to be supported by the right kind of steps. So people feel that this MPhil degree gives people a breathing space. They can learn those research-oriented
after this meeting is over, and we'd be happy to get back to you. So thank you so much, all of you, the panelists, the attendees. Thank you so much for shelling an hour out to join us on a Sunday evening. And we at Cerebro Kids support real-life learning. So if you're a parent, please consider exploring our website, cerebrokids.com, and get in touch with us. We'll be sharing the feedback form via emails, and